Hello and welcome back to the Scoutcast. There's another game week arriving and the current one isn't even over yet. Today we'll be helping you prepare for game week 33 plus. My name is Joe.
My name's Andy.
And my name is Lee.
Andy, what's in the show today?
Yeah, so the games aren't really coming thick and fast this week, but there are games on every night. So I think opinions are changing from what I can see every single day. So it'd be interesting to hear after last night's game and before City and Liverpool tonight. We're going to try and help people climb up the rankings by looking at differentials. They're going to be high on the agenda, as well as a Man United triple up to discuss. Is now a triple up the way to go? If so, which three to have? We're also going to look at third strikers as well. Lots of frustration over players like Calvert-Lewin, Jota as well. So we'll take a look at that and then all the usual stuff, clean sheets, differential picked by Lee, and our Game Week 33 plans as well.
Indeed. Firstly, let's have a quick look at how we're getting on so far in Game Week 32. So far I'm top of the tree, but that's because of one man, Aubameyang. So I've got 67 points so far, and I have Aurier, Alexander-Arnold, Salah, De Bruyne to go. So I'm hopeful of a green arrow. A blooming better be. I'm not going to brag about the Aubameyang point because I'm a
Yes, you are, Joe.
well I am, but I'm going to caveat it with I'm a long-suffering Aubameyang owner. I got this guy back in February, and then the pandemic struck, so I've held on to him for a long time. And when he came back, he let me down in a double game week. He's let me down since. So this was it. I'm planning to get rid of him, and this is my own. So basically, I've gone through all of that, and so this is my reward for that: is keeping him for an easy fixture, and his underlying stats were good. But it's not a brag saying, "Hey, aren't I amazing getting Aubameyang in?" It's more like, feel sorry for me because I've experienced Aubameyang for all these months now.
I would say fair play for holding your nerve. It would have been really easy to sell him over the last couple of weeks, what with the emergence of Rashford and Kane scoring the other day. But you held your nerve, so fair play.
Well, I will say, I mean, it's sad that Az isn't here actually, because I put a thing up on Twitter saying experienced managers will keep Aubameyang because they'll look at the stats and the fixtures, and he went, no, they won't. They'll get rid of him, and well, there we go. O'Connell and the other point mentioned here is that I got Aurier and Pulisic in. So last week I said I'm not going to do anything. Come Friday night, I looked at my team. I couldn't bear to look at Grealish. I could not bear to look at another Sheffield United defender. I had no bench. Stevens was suspended as well for that particular match. So Pulisic and Aurier came in. Pulisic, 2 assists. He's paid me back. I'm in profit by 2 whole points so far, and Aurier hasn't played yet. So if Aurier gets me -2, which you never know, I'll break even. And I'm okay breaking even at this stage. Let's hope Aurier doesn't get sent off. This is going to be one of those quotes that precedes unfortunate events.
It's possible. It's possible.
It's entirely possible. But anyway, that's me. Pretty similar to lots of people, apart from one guy, Aubameyang. Andy, you're next here. Tell us about your game week so far. 40 points.
Load of rubbish, basically. Load of rubbish, 40 points. It's a red arrow. There's almost no way I'm going to get into a green arrow with Salah, De Bruyne and Trent because everyone owns them anyway. So it's looking like a red arrow. Like I posted yesterday on Twitter about my horror story move. I made the big mistake of not having to make a move and just forcing one anyway, and took out Ings, 13 points for Nketiah, 1 point cameo, who then blocked Taylor on my bench as well. So pretty poor week. Calvert-Lewin, who we're going to talk about later, who's done nothing in 3 weeks now. Not looking good. And to top it all off, I switched captaincy from Fernandes to Martial after last week. Martial getting me 21 points. Big knee-jerk there. And he came away with a complete blank. So it's looking like a red arrow. Hopefully not a big one. Hopefully we can rectify it next week. But yeah, I just, especially how long this week has dragged on for from an FPL point of view, I cannot wait until it's over and we can get into some like proper game weeks where they're done in 3 days, basically. Yeah, looking forward to this one being over.
So a well worked phrase in FPL community is it's the hope that'll get us, the hope that will kill us. But look at Lee's team. Okay, 33 points so far. But look
There's no hope there.
But look at that shiny captaincy on Salah who's playing tonight. Hope. There is hope there of a mega score maybe. Tell us about your game week.
Well, if Andy's was bad, mine is really not good at all. I mean, it actually started off quite well. So I had the double Wolves clean sheet come in, Patricio and Doherty. I thought, here we go, one for a good game week. but it's just not improved since then. I do have a sob story. I have a big sob. Of course, I'll get to the hope in a minute, but I've got a sob story for you. And that is that obviously I played my wildcard just before the break. That's part of the sob story. But in doing so, got in a couple of players who were in really, really good form. Both Ismaila Sarr and Calvert-Lewin were in fantastic form going into the break. And the break has just completely killed all that momentum. So I've got these two guys in my team that, of course, I could have used the unlimited transfers. Yes, I understand all of that. But I decided to go free hit in game week 30, which actually worked out quite well for me. But then my team in 31 came back with these two guys in it. And the form and the momentum just gone. It's just not been there. So they're a real... I don't know, they're high on the chopping block list for me, both of those two guys. But you're right, Joe, the hope is still there. I made what can only be called a very much a heart overhead decision with my captaincy this week. Knee-jerk, one might say, on the back of the Liverpool title win, which that's the first mention I'll give of it this evening, won't be the last.
No.
But the Salah captaincy was, I just thought, we're going to go. I was caught up in all the euphoria. I just thought, here we go, we're going to go out and batter City at the Etihad. And I don't think any team goes and batters City at the Etihad, but there is hope. And with, as Andy said, with Trent and with De Bruyne, I'm not expecting big rank shifts there because of their ownership. Even less so with the Sheffield United defender. So it is all on Salah, and of course I'll be rubbing my hands together when that Ismaila Sarr 2-pointer comes off the bench as well.
Yeah, definitely. Talking of hope, here's a quick rough with the smooth here. It's rough and smooth. Now, it's a poster called Duzatelli. He posted this image on Tuesday night after Fernandez's 15-point haul. For the benefit of those on the podcast, he has Pulisic as captain, Fernandez 15 points, vice captain, first sub is Greenwood 12 points. Going into Wednesday night's matches, Pulisic was a big injury down, nursing his calf after FA Cup glory against Leicester. And then, so basically, he's got 27 points riding on Pulisic not turning up, or at least not coming on and being on the bench. As it turned out, Pulisic was in the starting lineup. He notched a couple of assists. So Pulisic got him 16 points. He kept Fernandez's 15, obviously. So he got over 30 points just from two players. Greenwood's points on the bench remained there, so there's a rough there. But I think, all in all, I love this picture because it just it tells us this tells the story of FPL, the highs and the lows that you get between the game days within a game week, the match days there, and the highs and lows he's going through. And it echoes of, I remember when I vice captained Lampard, who got like 25 points, and I had Drogba there on as my captain, not coming on, and eventually he didn't come on. So it's one of those moments that is very rare, and I think Duzatelli may indeed remember this for some time to come, the day that he could have got an extra 27 points, but in the end he did. Okay, let's move on to some of the topics that the community have been asking us questions on. Manchester United have been on everyone's lips at the moment. Andy, Manchester United fan as well. This is your section. Tell us, what are people saying about Manchester United?
My favourite topic. Like I said, everyone's looking for three players now, which is music to my ears. In Game Week 31, though, or after Game Week 31, everyone was talking about Martial and Rashford. They were obviously in the points against Sheffield United. Now it's all Greenwood and Fernandez. So there's a lot of knee-jerking going on. And I'd be lying, I think, if I didn't say last week that I was looking at ways to maybe shift my players around. Luckily, I didn't, but it's been on my mind. And there's also the defence to consider as well. Maguire and Wan-Bissaka, I think it's now 6 clean sheets in the last 8 league games. Yeah. So they're racking up clean sheets. Wan-Bissaka, two assists in the last 2 games, albeit the last one was probably a little bit fortunate. Greenwood kind of made that goal. But plenty of questions. The sociologist, I think I got that right. I should have practiced beforehand.
He's got an knowledge.
With fixtures tilting firmly in favour of the Manchester clubs, so including Man City there as well. Which of their assets should we prioritise bringing in for the remainder of the campaign? Stig, who are the best 3 Man United players to own? Mike H. Brow, is a triple Man United attack viable, or is that too many eggs in one basket? And FPL DC, is Rashford worth a United spot? He was too wide for my liking in the last game. I think, if we look at the Sheffield United game, it's a little bit different. But I think everyone knows where I'm leaning on whether we should have 3 players. So I'll come in last. Let's start with you, Lee. What are you thinking Man United-wise? 3.
Yeah, it's looking good for the triple up, isn't it? I must admit. Whether you would want to go all in on the attack, I don't know. I think you're right to dip your toe into either Maguire or Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Just before the break, actually, Wan-Bissaka was getting, if you look at the heat maps, far more advanced. I don't know what happened around game week sort of 24, 25, but he started to push further up the pitch. Maybe there was a change in mentality there, either from him or from Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. So of the two, despite the fact that every Fernandes corner looks for Harry Maguire's head, I think I would go for Wan-Bissaka of the two. But listen, if you want to go 3 and you want to go all out attack, that's absolutely a viable strategy as well. As you've said, the fixtures look fantastic, and look no further than game week 33, obviously the game week we've got coming up against Bournemouth at home. I mean, listen, you and I were on the Scoutcast match day last night, Andy, and the game that I watched was Bournemouth versus Newcastle. Let me tell you, Bournemouth were absolutely terrible. Absolutely terrible. They made John Joe Shelby look like Iniesta. He was finding pockets of space. He was picking up balls in dangerous areas. And in my head, I just thought that is exactly the sort of role that Fernandes will be playing against Bournemouth at the Vitality in game week 33. At Old Trafford. So Bournemouth are away, right? At Old Trafford in game week 33. And Shelby got, he got, I think, 1 assist, but no goals. So from that perspective, if Bruno Fernandes picks up those pockets and causes the same amount of damage as Shelby, then he is a good pick and he's a good captaincy option. But what I particularly liked about the Newcastle performance was the creativity of Shelby behind the front 3, actually. So Steve Bruce decided to put Gale and Joelinton up front together, and that really worked as a combination. And both of those guys getting in the points. And obviously St. Maximin as well was causing havoc down that side with the 3 assists. So there could be points all over. If you want to go all out on Manchester United in 33 and beyond, because of course the fixtures look good after Bournemouth with Villa and Southampton, etc., then I would not want to put you off that at all. Would not want to put you off. At the moment, I'm on Fernandes and Rashford, and I have a spot that is ready for a third Manchester United player. I've just got to make a decision as to whether it's Wan-Bissaka or whether I want to go for, I don't know, a Greenwood or a Martial or maybe even a Pogba.
Do you worry about, like, in general, all your eggs in one basket with 3 attack? Like, just because obviously they go and get a 1-0 or a 2-0 game and suddenly it's harder to kind of find points, especially when they got 5 attackers on the pitch at once. Does that worry you at all?
Usually it would, Andy, but I think if you look at, United have got the confidence thrown through that side is unbelievable right now. The way that they played against Brighton, it was just the swagger was there. The whole Pogba mentality, the way that he goes about his football matches is permeating throughout the squad and permeating throughout the team. And even like Rashford is trying little tricks and Fernandes looks as if he's, got an extra layer of confidence if he even needed one. So ordinarily I would, but I'm looking at they've got the 3 things, right? They've got form, fixtures and fantasy points. They are absolutely smashing it right now and the confidence is sky high. So I think, especially if you're chasing in your mini leagues, I think going all out attack on Man United is absolutely a viable strategy.
All right, so before we come to Joe, I'm going to put you on the spot. You have a free hit this week or a wild card this week. You can pick 3 Man United players for the rest of the season. Let's forget about your team for a second. Who are you picking?
I would go for Rashford and Bruno and Martial.
Nice. No sit on the fence. I like it. How about you, Joe? What's your thinking with Man United? I know last week you were saying this was the week you were going to start bringing more in.
Yeah.
Is that still the plan?
Yeah, it's still the plan, yeah. I've got a Aubameyang. It makes sense for me to get Rashford. A lot of people have put off Rashford because a lot of people, they look at the previous match and go, well, look, Greenwood and Fernandes are the guys to get. Don't bother with Rashford. Then Rashford goes and scores this week, for example. Then suddenly he's the guy to get. No one wants Greenwood, and so it goes on. So I'm looking. I think so. I'm going to anticipate your question. If I had a free hit, I would in fact go for Wan-Bissaka, Fernandes, and probably Martial. If I had a free hit, and I had that, I don't have that structure. I do like Wan-Bissaka. He's on hold for a while. So I think for me, I'm going to go for Rashford to go inside Fernandes, who I already have. So firstly, is the triple up justified? Yes. So since the restart, they've got the 3rd best attack. There's 5 goals in terms of expected goals scored, that is. So they should have been scoring 5, so doing well. Chelsea and City are in fact top. In terms of defence since game week 30, bear in mind this is obviously from when we've restarted. They have the best defence in terms of expected goals conceded. They have 0.9, so they would have conceded 9/10 of a goal, 1 goal. And Liverpool and Wolves are the next the next two best defences. I've got some stats as well. I know everyone loves some stats. I've got some stats and I've got a picture as well. So I'll put the picture up on the screen. I'll have a look at this first. So, interestingly, I looked at home and away with Rashford. I don't even know whether home and away is a thing anymore. We've got such a small sample and there's no blooming crowd there. But if it is a thing, maybe they like the dressing room, maybe they're superstitious about that type of thing. Maybe it's the way the manager organises them and says, right, even though you're away, you've got to play this way. But the image that people can see on the screen is comparing the last two home matches for Rashford against the last two away matches. The last two away matches, he hugs that touchline like a piece of chalk. He is there. He's practically the linesman. He's practically in the crowd. He is just there. But then move him to home and suddenly he's drifting in. You see he's cutting inside a bit more as well. So those watching the game against Brighton will have seen a little spark of his home form in that away match, which was when Greenwood did a lung-busting move, racing down the flank, passed the ball. Martial, Rashford and Fernandes were all in the box. Rashford's run was incredible. I could not believe what I was watching. Usain Bolt suddenly getting in there. He could have been on the end of that. He wasn't. It was Fernandes. It was a sensational finish there. But I looked at that move. I looked at the home heat map there for Rashford, and I feel confident getting him in. Here's some more stats. Martial, though, big chances total. So since the restart, he has got the most big chances there, even more than Fernandes and certainly more than Rashford. So Martial is a great bet. Lee, you mentioned about Bournemouth. I look at that and I think, I can't go into that just with Fernandes because I'm going to get from that match, I'm going to be down. Because everyone's going to have Fernandes, but they're going to have maybe two more, maybe one more. I need at least one more. I'd love to get Wan-Bissaka in, but it doesn't quite fit. And we'll see with my team a bit later. I kind of haven't got a spot for a defender at the moment, and it would certainly create a bit of a benching headache, which I've already got a little bit. Wan-Bissaka I like, clean sheet potential, and factor in he's created 4 chances, which is the same as Fernandes. So you've got a great option there. Clean sheets, assists, bonus to add in if he gets both of those. He's a 9-10 point guy. So I like him, but cheaper and defender and not as sexy as getting Martial and Rashford and Fernandes in. But you get more bang for your buck though, I think, there. So yeah, that's my thoughts. I'll look at
far be it from you, Joe, to pick a sexy pick. Come on, let's not break with tradition.
Well, I've gone a bit sexy this week. We're getting Pulisic in. He's fairly sexy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Aurier's not though, so
no, Aurier's not sexy at all. So I've dampened the sex.
Moving on. Yeah. So I could talk about Man United for ages. Like I've actually, for my own personal team, I almost feel like I've trapped myself by getting Maguire in over lockdown because I'm never going to want to make that sideways move to Wan-Bissaka, and I'd be really tempted to go triple attack right now because Greenwood looks such a good option. And someone mentioned last night, I can't remember if it was you or Gianni, or even Toby, basically saying if they keep lining up like this, then Greenwood is basically playing in Rashford's position on the opposite flank for 5 million less. I don't necessarily know if we've seen enough from Rashford to say that he's worth that extra. The only thing I would say is if any of that 5 are going to get rotated or rested, not rested or whatever you want to call it, it's probably going to be Greenwood. We could play Daniel James, but the fixtures we got, those teams are going to try and defend, and Greenwood can create something out of nothing. Daniel James just can't. He's just not that type of player. So I wouldn't. With top 4 now genuinely on the cards, like there's, in fact, you'd even say Man United are probably favourites to get in top 4 now, along with maybe Chelsea, because Leicester are kind of blowing it a bit. Wolves obviously got a really good chance as well. I don't see any rotation for that front 5 right now. So getting on to best picks, like I think Martial is still kind of underrated a little bit as an option. I think there's still this, he's injury prone, he's inconsistent. I keep seeing him thrown about. But he's played the last 22 or 23 games, which I tweeted about earlier. He's got 14 attack and returns in that time. As did Reply in telling me there are a lot of blanks there. But if you're keeping a player over a long period of time, his average points per match is 5.7. So in terms of midfielders for this whole season, that matches Son, that matches Mahrez, exactly the same. Only Mane, De Bruyne and Salah, who are incredibly more expensive, beat him, and Bruno Fernandes as well. So I think Martial's there's a bit of knee-jerking going on there because he blanked after doing so well. But if you watch that Brighton game, there was a couple of times when Shaw pulled the ball back and it ended up at Bruno's feet. Martial was in the box. It could have ended up in his feet on another occasion. So if I was picking 3 right now, and I come onto my transfers later, there is a small part of me that is tempted to shift Maguire to get 3 attackers because as good as Man United defence is, and I think the fixtures are still there to get plenty of clean sheets, and I wouldn't really advise necessarily getting rid. There are other defender options as well. Whereas in attack, they offer such good value. So the likes of Greenwood are so easy to get into your team. I'm kind of like a little bit sorry that I've kind of blocked from that opportunity. But yeah, I think Wan-Bissaka has to be the one if you're going for a defender. But if I was picking for 3, I'd still stick with the 2 I've got in midfield, Bruno and Martial, and then I'd pick another one. I think Rashford has got into good positions, and I wouldn't be worried about him. But he has looked a little bit rusty in his finishing. But that could change. We're going off a really small sample. So I'd even forget the Spurs game because it was first game back, and Spurs obviously a good team. But since then, Rashford and Martial were great, then Fernandes and Greenwood were great. Who knows what it's going to be in this one? So,
Andy, should we be completely ignoring Pogba then from that perspective? Because and the reason I've mentioned him is because eye test wise, he was getting into some nice positions. I think he got the assist for Bruno's goal the other night against Brighton. So, is there points there, or without the penalties, is he too expensive?
I don't think he's necessarily too expensive because I think he's actually the cheapest of, maybe not as cheap as Martial, but the other 4 that's not Greenwood, he is one of the cheapest. But I'm looking, eye test, like he does really pass it, but when you actually look at how many shots he's having inside the box, it's pretty minimal. And if I've got this right, so far during restart, he's actually only had 2 shots, and only one of them was in the box. So you're really relying on assists where he's created 6 chances, and Bruno and Rashford have already created 4, and they're getting into the box more. So he's like the biggest differential, well, outside of Greenwood, because he's really low end as well. But for me, he is the worst option out of all 5. Like he's not where unless you've got like a really big gut feeling that he's suddenly going to start getting into that box more. He is the one that's sitting a bit deeper than Fernandes. So yeah, he'd be the worst option for me, I think.
Yeah, it's one of those where you've got only 3 slots really. It's a case of if you're going to use those 3 slots, you probably don't want to waste one on Pogba.
Yeah, that's it for me. Yeah. It feels bad. It doesn't feel right calling it a waste, but I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, it's not where I would go. So I'm basically the same. Bruno, Martial, plus one other. Whether that's whatever fits your setup. If it's a defender, Wan-Bissaka. If it's a striker, I honestly think Rashford and Greenwood is a tough call. If you want the surety of starts, my money would be on Rashford starting more often. But Greenwood has not really put a foot wrong since the restart. So yeah, that's right. That's where I would be looking.
And title challenge next year? Yes or no?
Absolutely.
I think the Martial shot. He's the player I fear the most. If I got him in, I just don't think I can. It's just a bit of a restructure. It'll be hits in a week where I don't think I really need hits. But I do worry about him. And the fact that he's creating those big chances, he seems to be better at home, even if is home and away even a thing. And he's playing up front, and as Lee said, the Bournemouth are awful. So, he would definitely be the one. So there are people out there free hitting. This is a good week to free hit.
I agree.
And Martial, Fernandes, then take your pick.
I think ultimately, just quickly before we move on, like the one thing I would not be doing is knee-jerking whoever you own out. I don't think anyone has done so bad they don't deserve a spot. Like again, I'll talk later about why I'm thinking about Maguire, but that's a little bit of a different scenario. But look, like I said, I wouldn't lie if it didn't go through my mind. Oh, could I just shift the funds to Rashford somehow? But now I've got Martial and Fernandes. I don't see the point in swapping them. If I had Rashford and Martial, Rashford and Fernandes, I would just keep, I think.
I mean, obviously Greenwood is, in our thoughts as well. He is getting the starts. He is looking really good. But in general, he's part of a wider discussion, really, amongst the community about third strikers, because we've got various other players, Danny Ings, Calvert-Lewin, etc., all throwing into the mix. Lots of cheap options as well. So yeah, Lee, what's this about, and what have the community been saying?
Yeah, absolutely. So the third striker slot, I think in the past, and even earlier this season, we were talking about the death of the third striker and no value there, etc., etc. And then we kind of came back, I think, midway through the season to actually there's loads of options up front, and you can easily fill those 3 slots. What we're kind of coming back into, I wouldn't say the death of the third striker, but it is becoming more of a challenging position to fill, actually, in my opinion. Now, I've got Calvert-Lewin in my team. But as you mentioned, Joe, Greenwood and of course Nketiah from Arsenal, both now viable options, and amazing prices as well. Nketiah 4.4 and Greenwood even cheaper at 4.3. But how do you bench them? So if you're going to get these guys, you've got to kind of play them, I think, because they're getting the time and can get the points as well. Excuse me, they look great for the run-in, but maybe not just yet. So I'll be interested to hear from you guys in the live chat and over on Twitter as to what it is you're doing with your third striker spot, and whether you're going to stick with Calvert-Lewin and stick with Danny Ings, or whether you're going to go uber cheap with the Nketiahs and the Greenwoods. Let's see what their owners do with them over the next couple of days. The sociologist again, back with another question. He's saying, what should we do about that pesky third striker spot? Should we persevere with Dominic Calvert-Lewin? Should we back Ings for the Golden Boot race? So I think of all of the strikers that I've just mentioned there, Danny Ings has the edge potentially, because he's right up there with Jamie Vardy, who's lost a little bit of form, right up there for Golden Boot. I mean, who would have said that at the beginning of the season? Danny Ings for Golden Boot. Absolutely sensational. Or do we go, as the sociologist is saying, for the budget options, Nketiah, Greenwood, and then upgrade the midfield? Fantasy Prem Scout is saying, well, Greenwood and Nketiah look good if you do want to go for that power five in midfield. But actually, is that a sound tactic? Is that formation correct? 3-5-2, is that the way that we should all be going, or not, frankly? And then Martyberg65 says, is Kane now an option up front as a sword? Because, of course, not massively highly owned still, Harry Kane. And, of course, we saw him score that fantastic goal. Seems to have found a bit of form and fitness as well, which is a good thing. I remember a couple of opportunities where he kind of ran in behind the back four in the first couple of games since the restart. Or is Rashford a better pick as more of a shield? And this may particularly apply to Aubameyang owners in terms of where do you want to go. So with that in mind, Joe, I'm going to come to you because, of course, you have Aubameyang in your team. Lovely haul for you this week. What are you doing going forward with him, though?
Well, I'm getting rid of him because I don't like his fixtures.
How fickle you are.
I don't like his fixtures going forward. It was always the plan to keep him for this one and then move him on. I only have the one transfer, but the world's pretty much my oyster with that. There's no Aguero. So I'm looking. I think Rashford is the sensible one. He's got the form. I say he's got the form. His team has the form. He certainly has the fixture. And I definitely need more Manchester United. He would be a shield pick for me, though. So this week I've been very swordy. Pulisic and Aurier in, captain Aubameyang. We'll talk about differentials in a bit, but that was a sort of a sword week. I think this week I need to sort of consolidate a bit. Rashford is so well owned in the top 10,000 amongst engaged managers. If I don't have him in, or I don't at least have some kind of other Manchester United assets there, I'm going to fall back. So he's one for me. But Kane would be the attacking play, and I could get Harry Kane in. And I'm going to be watching Harry Kane tonight. He certainly has the pedigree. He can be, and he has been for the last couple of years, an extremely frustrating FPL player to have, because you think, why is he playing like in defensive midfield? And that's what you get for the Harry Kane. I'm fully going into the Harry Kane world, my eyes open, if I go down that route. So I've had a look at some stats. So you notice I'm not talking about these cheap third strikers, because I don't think of the positions in terms of the price, and that's not just saying, I'm blind to price, because of course you have to be aware of price with the budgeting with your team structure. But I don't look at Greenwood and go, he's 4.3, right, he's benchable. I in fact look at Calvert-Lewin at the moment and think, right, he's not scoring, they're not creating, so he's benchable. Greenwood's actually playable. And so I look at Harry Kane and Aubameyang, and I think and Rashford, and I think that's a good move. Is that my third striker? Because I've got Jimenez already. So sort of Calvert-Lewin's already my third striker. I'm in the market for a first or second striker, and so this may change the way people think about strikers. So I had a look at some stats, and since lockdown, Aubameyang, who I'm getting rid of, perhaps foolishly, is top for shots on target, top for shots in the box, and has created 2 chances as well for assist potential. I'm starting to wonder why I'm moving him on, even though it's Wolves next, who are really good defence. Anyway, that's something for people to consider. When you factor in expected goals into that, Abraham at Chelsea is top. He's not someone I'm interested in. Kane is second, Aubameyang is third, so you can see how good Kane is there in terms of what he's expected. It's those strong stats and not yet scoring, though, which is what I think we should be interested in, coming up with differentials. As I said, I'm looking for a sort of a shield pick with Rashford. But if I was looking for a sword pick, I would pick Harry Kane. But we'll talk about differentials later. But anyway, that's my thoughts on the third striker. There is no such thing as a third striker. They're all strikers. You just got to bench one sometimes.
All right, very good. And Andy, what's your view? So what does your front three look like right now, and how might you change it, if at all?
Yeah, I'm definitely looking at going to 3-5-2 for the next few weeks because there's so many midfield. Like, I've got Salah. I don't think I'm ready to jump off yet. I've got the two Man United players I mentioned. I've got Kevin De Bruyne, looking at Mahrez. There's Pulisic to consider, maybe even Bowen Antonio. So there's lots of midfielders I quite like. Not so many forwards that I like at the moment, especially after getting rid of Danny Ings stupidly last week. I think on Nketiah and Greenwood, like, I feel like I've now been burned by Nketiah. Like, he's now going straight to bench fodder for me. I won't play him because I just won't be confident that he'll play every week. I think it's a bit different with Greenwood. I think until we see maybe Daniel James start or whoever it might be on the right side, I would definitely play him regardless of the price. And I think that's really important not to get sucked into that when you're looking at maybe Rashford versus Greenwood. But Nketiah now, I thought after the FA Cup rest, I thought guaranteed to start against Norwich, didn't start. So for me, he'll be going bench fodder for me, which is why I'm looking at 3-5-2. On Calvert-Lewin and Danny Ings, it's really interesting because Danny Ings obviously scored 3 goals. Calvert-Lewin's done nothing. Danny Ings had 3 shots on target since the restart and scored 3 goals.
Yeah, saw that.
Yeah, in shots inside the box, Danny Ings 8, Calvert-Lewin 7. And Calvert-Lewin had none last night. So obviously that's not a good thing, but he's not really that far off. And Calvert-Lewin's 3 of his last 6 fixtures aren't that bad. And has him and Everton become an awful player over lockdown? I don't know. I'm not really trying to make the case of holding Calvert-Lewin or bringing him in, but I know that I've made rash decisions already since the restart. And so unless I can make a really good move down,
I'm probably going to look at if you think of Calvert-Lewin as your third striker, he's got great fixtures towards the end. His fixtures aren't that great in this very short term, but we know what he can do, and there's something up with Everton in terms of creativity. I don't think Calvert-Lewin's been the problem. I think it's the rest of Everton aren't being creative to him. So here's something for you perhaps to consider with Calvert-Lewin: is keep him, but just bench him, and then just switch him back to Ings or something if he's not playing for you. But see him as a kind of a Greenwood or an Nketiah at the moment.
He's kind of a bit pricey to bench, though, isn't he? I mean,
I think you're thinking about price again. Look at the player, what they're doing, their form, their fixture, and that's what he is now. It doesn't matter about the price.
Yeah,
one thing I will say. Sorry, Andy, go on.
Sure. No, go on.
Well, I was just going to mention, I mean, a staple for me every week that I look at, and Fantasy Football Scout members can look at it, is obviously the goals imminent table. A couple of interesting names on there: Jay Rodriguez from Burnley, and of course Antonio, who you mentioned before, Andy. But Calvert-Lewin is on the goals imminent table, so I think you're spot on, Andy. It's not for the want of trying from DCL, and the stats are kind of equivalent to Danny Ings. It's just that Danny Ings has been more clinical.
Yeah, and around that price, like, obviously Danny Ings is a great option. Danny Ings plays Man City and Man United in the next 3 fixtures. If you don't own him, I personally won't be bringing him in. I know people like form over fixtures, but those fixtures are too tough. And when you look outside of that, I don't know who we, unless you've got a spot for a Greenwood, you've got the money for a Rashford or Kane. I don't really know where the other option is outside of Calvert-Lewin. Jota hasn't been performing that well for Wolves. Their fixtures are okay. They're not as good as the first 3 they had. Morpay has Norwich next. Would I trust him after that? I don't know. There's hardly any strikers I want right now around that price. So for me, I agree with people that are getting rid of Calvert-Lewin. And I've seen some really good moves. Like if you can afford to go up to Kane, up to Rashford, or down to Greenwood because you got a spot, that looks really good. But I'm actually thinking of keeping him just because of the way my team is locked in. And I'm kind of learning from my mistakes of trying to... Sometimes I just want rid of a player so much, I will think of any way to do it. And that's starting to become that move with Calvert-Lewin. And I just think if I haven't got a really good reason, sometimes just because of the position I'm in, then I might just keep him. His stats have looked okay. A little bit worried about last night, and Richarlison injury, how bad will that be as well? That could hurt them. But yeah, just really quickly, just to touch on this one. Kane up front, I think look at the Sheffield United game tonight, because the Man United game, non-existent, much better in the West Ham game, but very small sample sizes. If he looks on it against that, and I'm not just talking about scoring goals, I mean getting into the right positions, joining the attack when there's a counter-attack, which we saw against West Ham a couple of times, then I think he's a genuine option. Obviously, the big problem with him, as always, is the price. 10.9 million for someone you are very unlikely to captain for the rest of the season, I would say, apart from maybe Bournemouth away, who they have in a few weeks. But if you've got a slot for him, like an Aubameyang owner or something like that, I'd be keeping a very close eye on him tonight to see how he and Spurs perform, because I like the look of him against West Ham. I just don't have a way to bring him in right now.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to differentials. Now, we usually have this towards the end, but I'm sort of bringing it forward in the running order a bit more. So I will come and ask, it's Lee's turn to pick a differential, so I'll talk to him in a sec about that, who his key differential is. But we've had so many questions really from the community about this, and it fits in. We're running out of time. We're running out of game weeks. And if you've got a team which is full of, like Rashford, who I'm thinking of getting in, KDB, Salah, high-owned players, really high-owned players against engaged managers, you're not really going to... You're going to perhaps go up the rankings, but you're not really going to rocket up the rankings. But you do need to have those differentials. You do need to have those low-owned players. So this week we saw it with Antonio owners. We saw it with St. Maximum owners. We saw it with those who captained Aubameyang as well. Massive rank swings there by just going a little bit different. I'm not saying go different as in crazy, but going different as in look at the stats, look at the fixture, look who is low owned, surprisingly low owned, and find out who they are and bring them in if you're in the market for moving up the rankings, which I'm presuming most people are, unless they're number one. So we've had some questions. Dunas Dog, who are the best differentials to bring into the team if chasing in a mini league? Also for rank. Midfield template, asks Redo. Fernandes, Salah and KDB look great for points, but they're so well owned. Could a focus on having great defenders who are differentials in a 4 or even 5 at the back be a good differential tactic? So using the structure as a differential. Jammy Sprat, making headway requires differentials, but which well-owned high-ceiling players do we dump? Now I've seen a few teams without Salah, without KDB. They've taken that bold move as well. Which ones can we do without? Scuba Smithy, can the Power 5 be a differential in itself? And this is something that I know that world former number one Simon March, one of our pro pundits, has spoken about at the time. You get so many well-owned players in, it becomes a differential in itself. And I'm kind of thinking that with Manchester United, for example, so well owned, but only one isn't enough. You've got to own more in order to make headway. So he mentions Martial, Pulisic and Mahrez. Mahrez 9.9% ownership as of Tuesday. Wow. So I'm going to put a picture up here as I'm talking about this. So you've got KDB in the middle and then David Silva and Mahrez. So you're going to probably need KDB, but you're going to mix it up a bit with Man City's fixtures. And Mahrez, 1 in 10 owners own him. He looks ripe for investment. Axe 16, that's his name by the way. I feel strikers are getting less and less important, and he's another one who's talking about using structure differently. 4-4-2, as Andy was talking about these sort of going 2 up front. 5-4-1 even as well. So I'm going to go to you, Lee, first, because firstly I'm going to ask you, you're tasked with picking a differential under 5% ownership and for the next 4. But also there's all those questions to consider as well. So go with your differential at the moment, next 4. Who was it?
Yeah, so I kind of I do like the comment that Axe16 made there in terms of using formation as a differential. I think we've seen, I've got no stats to back this up, but certainly I've watched a lot of football in the last few weeks, and it feels like there's less goals. I mean, I don't know whether the players are getting a bit more match fitness now, and maybe we'll start to see more games like West Ham and Chelsea last night. But certainly, to begin with, we saw not a lot of goals. So using that maybe 5 at the back strategy, I do like that potentially as a strategy. In terms of differentials, I think if you were going to ask me for one for this week, I would probably refer back to the game I watched last night, Newcastle Bournemouth, and say, well, I really like what Steve Bruce is doing there. I like the fact that he's trying new things towards the end of the season because frankly, Newcastle are kind of in that mid-table bracket where I don't know how they're motivated, really. They're not going to obviously go down. They're not going to probably get in Europe. So, why not try a few things out? And he actually tried Gale, or he's tried a couple of times now, Gale up there with Joe Linton. I think Joe Linton has really benefited from having Gale buzzing around him with St. Maximin's creativity as well and the kind of solidity of John Joe Shelby. So I think if I was looking for a differential this week, I'm maybe looking to Newcastle, who are at home to it's West Ham, isn't it? West Ham. And in particular, Sam has Alan St. Maximan in her team, got the 15 or so pointer from last night, so she's very happy. So I like the look of him. However, you have asked me for a differential over the next few weeks. And for that, I'm going to go to Man City. We've mentioned before, previously on the Scoutcast here, the fixtures for Manchester United and Manchester City. Both sides of Manchester look fantastic, and City's look absolutely brilliant. They've got obviously the Liverpool game, which we know is coming up tonight. But then after that, Southampton away, Newcastle at home, Brighton, Bournemouth, Watford, Norwich. I mean, they've all set for a strong run-in for the season. And in the same way that Steve Bruce's approach at Newcastle is to maybe try some new things out, I've got a feeling Pep is already actually starting to try some things out and will continue to do that between now and the end of the season. So Phil Foden, who comes in at only 1.5% team selected by, I think if you can swallow the fact and just accept that, he's not going to get 90 minutes every game, probably, we don't know. But you've got to feel that Pep is going to, obviously now the league's gone, he's going to try and give Foden and some of the more periphery players a bit of time. Foden in particular, because I think he's going to be an important player for him next year, with obviously David Silva not being around. So 5.2 million with those fixtures coming up, even if he sees limited game time or maybe even 60, 70 minutes a game, we've already seen that Foden's come back from the break, fit, firing, got the 16-pointer against Burnley at the Etihad in game week 30, of course. So looks raring to go, looks as if he's ready to take that opportunity. So yeah, 1.5% team selected by. So Phil Foden is going to be my pick.
Well, I can't argue with that. I've got him in my list as well. I've mentioned in the Sky game as well. It looks great, especially that final day. We're gonna, get some team news before maybe. Foden, it just seemed, he's the future really. So it seems likely he'll play. I think that's a really good bet as well. An interesting thing about Foden, why he's so good as a differential, because his ownership, whatever his ownership is amongst engaged managers, he's benched a lot as well. So you're going to get a lot of people who even own him and are going to bench him. So his actual effective ownership of actual playing is actually going to be even lower than really low. So he's an ultra differential, but we've seen he's got the quality now. And he's been groomed for next year. He's the future, and he's stepping up to the mark. Great shout. I really like that.
It'll be very interesting to see whether Pep uses him tonight, actually, because he obviously used him in 30 against Burnley to great effect, and then didn't get any minutes against Chelsea. So against the top teams, is he maybe going to play him against Liverpool tonight? Let's see. But then obviously after Liverpool, they ain't got to play many top teams, with all due respect to those teams. So I can foresee Foden getting a few points after the Liverpool game.
Yeah, so some of those other issues that the community are asking about differentials as well. What do you think about, not just in terms of using your structure as a differential itself as well, but things like who do you get rid of? Who do you get rid of? And which other differentials are you looking at?
Well, I think from my perspective, who do you get rid of? That's a difficult one, isn't it? I think there are some brave managers out there already who have got rid of some of their Liverpool players, like Salah and Mane. Obviously had a few transfers out in the last few weeks. And you can see why. I think you can see why, because the league's done. But again, if you look at the not just the mentality that Klopp brings to that team, but also the fact that both of those guys are going to be after the individual accolade, potentially of Golden Boot. They would not have liked sharing it last season with each other, even less so with Aubameyang as well. I think it's probably safer to keep those guys. I think I certainly am going to stay with Salah rather than sell. But I can understand why people are getting rid of those guys. But I don't see a lot of transfers out for Kevin De Bruyne. So to answer your question about who to get rid of, that's a very difficult one. Andy, what do you think about this? I'm going to defer to you in terms of your team. Who are you thinking about getting rid of?
Calvert-Lewin and Hayden. I've got money to burn, so Hayden. It's hard to say. Like, out of the well-owned players, I'm actually not looking at getting rid of any of them. I don't think. Like, the problem with Liverpool is they have 3 very good fixtures in the next 3 games. So, as I've said before, like this week is a large part of FPL is getting ahead of the curve. I'm just not sure I'm willing to take that risk on Liverpool players who, Salah did an interview with Carragher that I was chatting about last night. Oh, yeah. And he got asked, which would you prefer, the Golden Boot or the points? And he said, I need to go for the team one, which is the Golden Boot. And he made a joke out of it. And obviously it's just a joke, but that's on the back of his mind. I know, people will say, look, they always want to score goals, but we've seen plenty of times before where this comes into effect. They try and get that player the ball and stuff like that. So I'm not prepared yet to get rid of Trent or Salah, to be honest. In terms of differentials, I'm kind of looking the same way. I've actually got Foden on my list, and he's going to be potentially part of my transfer plans this week, which again I'll talk about later. Yeah. Man City are really where I'm looking, and top 10k percentage, even though I'm really far away from that, I think it does give you a good idea of active managers. So Jesus, 1.6% owned in the top 10k. Foden, 0.24. Mahrez is 6.68, which is crazy. So I'm looking at getting at least one more Man City player in, maybe two, because I just think outside of Liverpool and Man United, with the fixtures that are remaining, looking at the teams and the fixtures that are remaining, they're probably the ones that are going to score the most goals, unless they really go off the boil because there's nothing much to play for. But I'm not convinced that's going to happen because they need to keep kind of match rhythm for cups and stuff. And I think the point that I think Joe made about Simon, about having the power five, I think differentials are really important, but I think people worry about the percentage they have to be at. Like Danny Ings is owned by 21% in the top 10k, which sounds like a lot, but only 1 in every 5 managers has him. To me, that's still a differential. And when I put in, like if I get Mahrez in this week, I will have Mahrez, De Bruyne, Salah, Fernandes, and Martial. And obviously this will change for next week because people will be able to make transfers. But right now, for Gameweek 32 in the top 10k, that combination is owned by 8 out of 10,000 managers. So my midfield as a whole, yes, they're owned quite highly overall, but together, they're not actually that highly owned at all. So if they all happen to go off in 1 week, I'd still be seeing a big green arrow, even though if I show people my team, they call it template. So I'm not looking at going a kind of differential for the sake of it, and I quite like the ones that have been mentioned here. But Man City, Greenwood, 1.1%. There's some really good options in top teams. I think Chelsea are probably the other one that I would look at. Like Pulisic again, only owned by 11% in the top 10k. So yeah, loads of options. I'm not sure about changing to a 4 or 5 at the back, mostly because I don't know if I'd want to stick to it for the rest of the season. It's a lot of transfers to restructure and a lot of transfers to get back. But I'm definitely looking at 5 in midfield.
Yeah, I mean, I think with the talk of differentials is to look at it in moderation. If you have a complete team of differentials, you're either going to end up being number 1 or you're going to end up being like 7 million. But if you balance it around with those swords and those shield picks, so you can't. So Jimenez this week he blanked, but his effective ownership was 100 and something ridiculous, 120%, and which is it's too much. It's too much. So basically, if he goes off, even if you've got him and you're not captaining him, you're going to have a rank drop. And I've experienced that before this season with players that I don't own, but their effective ownership is very big. So what I think you should do is look at being fluid. So this is why I'm not keen on a 4, 5 at the back or a 4 at the back. I'm keen on possibly going 4 at the back, but having the option of going 3 up front as well. We're still at the beginning of the season, really, and the differentials are emerging. And like everything, the key to unlocking success in FPL is spotting the players that are about to go off on a big points haul and getting them in before. Because if you wait a couple more weeks, they're going to be template again. And that's the key. So you're getting in the likes of Pulisic, Foden perhaps, Mahrez. These are the players that people should be thinking about getting in now. Elsewhere, Man City, hugely strong fixtures. You mentioned Foden there. We've got Mahrez in the picture. I think they're absolutely great options. Jesus, I'm not sure about. It's early days. Let's see. But owning KDB alone, I just think is not enough. Owning Fernandes for Manchester United, for me, is not enough. In the past, owning Suarez at Liverpool, but not Sturridge, or not owning some of their defenders, not enough.
Yeah,
you need to own more. You need to own more because there you can get your differential. You're getting the double ups. People still don't go for the double ups. Danny Ings towards the end of the season, great. Mix him up perhaps with Ward-Prowse as well on Armstrong, and you're not only getting a march on those that don't own Danny Ings. You're getting a march on people who own Danny Ings because they won't have the guy who's assisting him, or perhaps is being assisted by him. You're not getting that match up there. So look at those. Traore and Jimenez is a great example now. I think I really like Wolves' defence a bit better, but Traore and Jimenez is the Fraser of Wilson, for people remember it last season. You're getting that double up and you're differentiating. So on my current goal, you mentioned goals imminent table, really good week this week. Antonio was top. And we had Aubameyang there as well. And who else was it? Antonio, Aubameyang, Dwight Gale was in it. So we predicted Dwight Gale's goal. And so on. And Richarlison as well. So it did really well this week in terms of that. So currently, Antonio is still there. There's more to come for Antonio. I think Antonio's absolutely my top. So I mentioned him in the differentials last week. Sort of like half like kidding myself, thinking, hey, how about Antonio? And I was thinking, no one's going to really listen to me. But I actually wish someone had listened to me because he did really well.
He was great, wasn't he?
And I think he's still going to be good. He's still there at the current goals imminent table, which means that he is, he's still due. Calvert-Lewin is there. The interesting with Calvert-Lewin is he's getting the quantity of shots. The quality is poor, though. The expected goals isn't as high, and also their big chances isn't very high. So what we need is he's getting in the right places, but he's just not getting that quality there. So that's what I'm looking out for. This is why I'm thinking of perhaps benching Calvert-Lewin, or at least keeping him for a while, because I'm not sure. But anyway, he'll become Danny Ings if he doesn't shape up soon. Yep.
Could you really quickly, because I've actually looked at Liverpool as well, which I don't think have been forgotten about, but I don't think necessarily everyone...
not Andy. We're champions. I don't know if I told you.
I think you did, yeah. I don't know if everyone's tripling up right now, but I looked at them. Obviously, Uber differential, if you expect to see some rotation, Origi 0.03%. But probably more interesting, like I've seen a lot of teams now that have just got Trent, but Liverpool play Villa, Brighton and Burnley, I think it is, in the next 3. So maybe going to double up in defence. Like the combination of Trent and Van Dijk in the top 10k is 6.7%. I'm sure it hasn't been that low all season.
Yeah.
And the combination of Trent and Robertson is only 3.59%. So getting in another, if you've got a luxury transfer, you've already got the Man United, Liverpool, Man City players you want, apart from the defence, you could double up. Obviously, there is a chance of rotation, but Van Dijk, I would probably say, is the least likely. Could still get rotated. I'm not saying he definitely won't. Adding him to Trent could be a way to maybe assure a clean sheet. Potentially even get
another great differential double up, and look at the fixtures. Man City, Liverpool, Manchester United, Wolves, they've all got good fixtures. Southampton towards the end, Everton towards the end. Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin, if Calvert-Lewin can have some creativity there, that could be a great double up. Armstrong and Ings is another uber differential move that could work out. Here's some other ones. Top 10k ownership, Pulisic mentioned, 11% owned. Get him in, he looks great. I'm pleased he's in my team. Top 10k ownership, Kane 10% compared to Son's 48%. Son's playing out on the wing, Kane's playing up top. Not sure how that's going to work out, but if it's working out in the way that Kane gets all the points and Son doesn't, Kane's 10% ownership in the top 10k compared to Son's 48%. That's going to be a huge rank swing in your favour if you go for Kane. Foden, 5% in the top 10k, but his effective ownership is often around 1% because everyone's benching him. Jesus, less than 2% ownership. And very outside bet, top 10k ownership. Mbappe at Brighton playing Norwich next as a one-off punt. If you're looking for a free hit, less than 1% ownership. And Antonio as well, less than 1% ownership. I think there's really good options there. But for me, I'm going to stick with my last week's one, Antonio, and say he's the best one at the moment because West Ham have the fixtures.
Good shout.
He's got the form. He's really good, but I really like all of the options both of you have mentioned. There's loads of choice.
Did you see Antonio's interview after the match last night?
Great.
It was great, yeah.
What a great guy. I mean, it's just such a humble guy. He's absolutely sweating buckets. He put in such a shift. He was easily man of the match last night. He was sensational. It's
always remarkable when you hear a really articulate footballer. And that's not to say our footballers aren't articulate, but there's a lot of media training going on. And, if the gaffer picks me kind of stuff, that Alan Shearer sort of, I hope I score kind of thing. But when you actually get an articulate one like that, who's talking from the heart perfectly well and coming across as really engaging, amazing, isn't it? It's wonderful to see.
Quite dismissive of VAR as well, if I remember rightly, which was kind of amusing.
Yeah, that was good. It was his head, wasn't it? It was his forehead or something was just over the line.
Was in Kepa's eye line or something? Yeah, let's not go there. Let's not go there.
That's crazy. Hopefully we've given lots of people advice about differentials, really. It's not just about picking low ownership. It's about those double ups and looking at structure and things like that as well. And there's lots of differentials out there. Andy, who are the best teams for clean sheets over the next 4?
That is a great question. I would
can.
have to quickly look it up. Do you have it in front of you?
I can. I'll tell you
forgot
what.
to put that in
I'll
my
ask
notes, sorry.
myself. Hey Joe, what are the?
Hey Joe, I was just about to say,
Hey, Joe.
Joe. I was looking for clean sheets over the next 4. Do you know who would be good?
I'll tell you what. It's great that you asked because I've got a handy picture here.
He's got it prepared, hasn't he?
West Ham looking good. Newcastle, Burnley at home, Norwich and Watford at home looking really good for clean sheet. They're top of the clean sheets. This is according to the fixture ticker of Fantasy Football Scout. Press the little defence button and it tells you which are the best teams there. Man City are looking good. If we can predict who the hell is going to start in their back 4, Southampton, Newcastle, Brighton and Bournemouth up next. Chelsea good. So they concede against West Ham, but do not rule Azpilicueta and Alonso out for the next 4. Watford next, Crystal Palace, Sheffield United and Norwich. Manchester United will not go away. Bournemouth, Villa, Southampton and Crystal Palace. That could be 4 clean sheets, you know. So this is why I quite like Van Bissaka. Liverpool, that defensive double up you mentioned could reap rewards. Villa at home, then Brighton, Burnley at home, then Arsenal over the next 4. Gets a bit tougher. Leicester, Crystal Palace, Arsenal and Bournemouth and Sheffield United. So Leicester's next 4 are sort of okay. I'm not going to go near Leicester myself. I don't like the way they have come out of Project to Restart. Other options. I've got Aurier, so Tottenham are doing okay. Next 4, I've got Everton, Gameweek 33, and then followed by Bournemouth, Arsenal. That's an anything goes match. That's 20 points or a double red card if that's possible for Aurier in that match. I'm going to enjoy the roller coaster for that. Newcastle as well. They have in Gameweek 36, and do not forget Watford. So Andy, are you still a Foster owner like me? This is why we've got him.
He's
in.
awful. He's not.
Don't,
right, Joe. I want you to right now to admit that Foster was not a good pick.
In hindsight, with the benefit of hindsight, I would have gone for Nick Pope, obviously. But let's
gone for anyone. Martinez got 2 clean sheets. Patricio 2 clean sheets.
When the
Pope,
final whistle rolls out, if a whistle can indeed roll across the streets of Newcastle at the end of Game Week 35, that's when I will declare Foster to be bad. But not yet. So he's got Chelsea next, Watford, and then Game Week 34, 35. Get this, Norwich at home, Newcastle at home. Okay, that's Foster time. And then West Ham away, Game Week 36. When I'll potentially be looking to bench boost. Yeah, he might go then. But yeah, those 2, yeah. At the end of that Game Week 35, that's when I will join you in declaring Foster to be awful. But or maybe I'll declare him to be a hero. Okay, let's move on to Game Week 33 and our plans as well. So as we can see, there's lots of great matchups. Manchester United at home to Bournemouth, Wolves against Arsenal. Who knows what can happen there? Chelsea at home to Watford. For your differentials, Brighton against Norwich. Liverpool at home to Villa. On paper, got to be amazing, that one. Southampton hosting City and Spurs against Everton. Kane, incidentally, has an enormously amazing record against Everton. Many a time I've thought, Harry Kane, and then he goes and fires a bracing against Everton. I thought, Harry Kane. Yeah, I'll go with me first because I've sort of talked about what I'm going to be doing. So my team is Foster in goal. Oh dear, against Chelsea. I've got Bolly, Alexander-Arnold and Aurier at the back. I'm happy with that. Pulisic, Fernandes with an S, and Salah and De Bruyne in the midfield of 3-4-3. Salah captaincy for now. Calvert-Lewin, Jimenez and Aubameyang up top. Now Aubameyang's probably going to become Rashford, but he may become Harry Kane. I might consider something a bit more drastic involving a hit. I'm not sure, in which case I might bench Calvert-Lewin. I've already got Fernandes with a Z being benched against West Ham. I think that's a good fixture for Newcastle defensively, but it's also a good fixture for West Ham attackingly, so I can't really call that, but I could get some points there on the bench. And Cantwell at home to Brighton. I'm reluctantly benching him as well. I think my bench is fine this week, so I don't mind a bit of rotation here or there. I've got some players to come in, but yeah, probably Rashford. I think I'm going to go for a shield move. So Andy, let's move on to your team then. So it sounded like you were thinking of something a bit more exciting. I'll just run through the team. You got Foster, you got Sace, Alexander-Arnold, Maguire, Fernandes with an S, Martial, De Bruyne, Salah with the captaincy so far. Calvert-Lewin, Jimenez and Nketiah up front, and on your bench McCarthy, Taylor, Hayden and Egan. So yeah, you were thinking of something a bit more extravagant than me.
Yeah, I'm in major overthinking mode right now. I think I'll probably play Taylor ahead of Saiss actually this week. So I'm going to bench my Wolves defender, which is a little bit risky, but it is Arsenal. And Taylor's playing Sheffield United, who have not looked good for scoring. And obviously that would at least cover another bloody Pope clean sheet as well. So I'm thinking of doing that. And captaincy, I've got it on Salah, but I told myself before this game week even started, I wasn't going to captain a Liverpool player for the rest of the season to try and be a bit different. And the fact that Bournemouth just conceded 4 to Newcastle, I've got to put it back on a Man United player. The problem is I flip-flop between the two. So do I now keep it on Martial or do I go back to Fernandes? Bearing in mind I've got that combination wrong the last 2 weeks. So that is going to go right down to the wire. My gut feeling is to keep it on Martial. But Fernandes has got such a range of ways to get points. He probably is the one it should be on. So I'll decide that later. And so transfer is a bit more interesting. So I've basically got a free transfer, a 4-point hit, and an 8-point hit on my mind. So free transfer, I can literally just do Hayden to Mahrez. I've got that power 5 midfield I spoke about. Jimenez and Calvert-Lewin playing every game, and Nketiah gets benched for the foreseeable future, basically, because I just don't know when he's going to start. And Arsenal's fixtures aren't great going forward. Like Wolves, although I'm going to bench Saiss, I'm not necessarily expecting Nketiah to get anything. The 4-point hit, Calvert-Lewin to Jesus. And I could just leave it at that, go 4-4-2, play Nketiah or whatever. But I'd probably do Hayden to Foden. So then I'd have 3 Man City players, Jesus, De Bruyne and Foden, as well as 3 Man United. And really just go for it. But my only worry is Jesus is just more expensive than Mahrez, and I'm not sure he's a better option. And he hasn't really looked like he's fired so far. But I do expect him to get almost as many minutes as Mahrez for the rest of the season. Or I shift around a bit, 8-point hit, Maguire to Van Dijk, Calvert-Lewin to Greenwood. That would free up my Man United third slot. And then still bring in Mahrez or Pulisic in the midfield 5. So I'd still be playing 3-5-2, apart from I'd have double Liverpool defence and triple Man United attack, and still have Mahrez, or maybe Pulisic I'm thinking about as well. So yeah, I don't know which of those 3 I'm going to go. -8 to remove Maguire, who's got 6 clean sheets and 8, sounds a bit like something I shouldn't do.
Don't do that. Just don't. I'm not even going to argue. So just don't. I'm not going to give you a reason. Just don't do it.
But it goes back to what I was saying. Like I've kind of forced transfers too many times this season and recently, where I actually think probably just getting Mahrez in for free and just playing Calvert-Lewin again is probably just the way to play it.
Yeah.
But the fact I could get Jesus and Foden does tempt me a little bit. I'm going to try and second guess Pep after this Liverpool game, which is an absolute stupid thing to do. We're all waiting for the lineup tonight, and we're all going to make decisions based off it, and he's just going to do whatever he wants in the next game. But I'm still going to do that. Wait for the game and then decide who to go for.
Okay.
Definitely Man City players.
I think what you just talked about there just sums up what we've been talking about so far. There's so many options, and there's so much information that we're waiting as each match goes. And yeah, trying to get that rotation right. It's so hard to nail down, especially with Pep. But yeah, it sounds much more interesting than my move of getting a Rashford in. Lee, I'm just going to go through your team and then you can tell me what you're doing. I know you've already made a move. So you've got Patricio in goal. Good move, by the way. Alexander-Arnold and Gomez. There's that defensive double up. Doherty and Taylor in a 4-3-3. That's a really good back line. Okay, Salah captain, De Bruyne, Fernandes with an S, and then up front you've got Rashford, Calvert-Lewin and Jimenez, and on your bench you have Button, Sarr, Saka and Stevens, and I understand that Sarr has already gone for Pulisic, who I presume is going to play. Who makes way for Pulisic in your 11?
Yeah, so I guess unlike Andy, it sounds like Andy, you've got quite a bit of thinking still to do. I've my thinking's done. I saw enough of Pulisic in that West Ham game, despite Chelsea not getting the result clearly. He did well out of the FPL points, and he's just come back with a spring in his step. I don't know what happened to him over the break. Maybe he was not having the crowds there and the pressure. I don't know, but something's different about him, and he's getting on the ball far more often, and he's ghosting into those areas that you want to see him in as an FPL manager in a very Lampard-esque way, by the way. So I don't know whether that's something they've worked on. I don't know, arriving late into the box. So Sarr has gone. I've transferred out Sarr for Pulisic. Had to do it last night, otherwise I've been 0.1 out because I think either Sarr went down or Pulisic went up, or maybe even both. But anyway, the markets dictated that I needed to do that last night. So Calvert-Lewin drops to the bench now. Ooh. So he's my first sub right now. Pulisic comes in. So that graphic that you've got on the screen, I'm afraid, apologies, that is already out of date. The back four is still the same, but now the midfield is Salah, De Bruyne, Fernandes and Pulisic with Rashford and Jimenez up front. Just a couple of quick points about the captaincy. My bus team has got it on Salah right now. I'm going to see whether he's in that kind of selfish golden boot mode tonight. And as captaincy tonight, obviously I hope that he is. But listen, I watched that Bournemouth performance last night, and I just can't. I don't think you can not captain a Man United asset next week. If Bournemouth turn up and play like they did against Newcastle, they will get ripped to shreds against Man U at Old Trafford. So I think my captaincy is going to change. It just depends, like Andy. Do I go Fernandes or do I go Rashford? I'm leaning towards Fernandes right now. And just a quick shout for that Liverpool double up. I've had Gomez for a while now. And as Andy was saying, the Liverpool double up in defence does look good. If your budget can't stretch to a Van Dijk or Robertson, do have a look at Gomez. He's 5'2", maybe 5'3" in the game. Matip is now out for the season, so Gomez looks pretty locked. Now, Klopp will probably want to give some of the younger centre-halves like Sepp van den Berg, and we've got a young player called Hoever as well. You want to give those teenagers a bit of time, but what he'll probably do is bring Gomez off on 65, 70, the clean sheet already locked in, and let's face it, with Gomez, your ceiling's 6 anyway, so what do you care? So then he can give the youngsters a bit of time, sort of 10, 15 minutes. So I think Gomez is a really nice pick between now and the end of the season from a budget perspective, as well as getting those 6-pointers locked in. So that's my team. I'm pretty happy with it. Could be a points hit potentially, but then if I look at that and the points hit would be for another Manchester United player, I think. But if I look at my team, I think I'm quite happy with it. So I only really ever take a points hit if I look at my 11 and go, oh, I hate that. And at the minute, I don't hate it.
No,
so
I think it's
that's
good.
What I'm
I like it.
with.
I like the back line a lot. And I think this is something that free hitters might note, that this could be a good week for a 4-4-2. Because you do have a lot of favourable matches for defenders there. And of course, you've got a lot of choice in midfield. And that 4-4-2 also enables you to get loads, to really pack it with a lot of good players. And because you've got that defender rather than an attacker, you're saving a bit of money that way. Well, that's the theory. But yeah, that's a really good side actually with Pulisic in there. Who I definitely rate as well. Remember everyone that all the stats and season ticker that we've been using here, that's all from the Fancy Football Scout members area. Please do have a look on site. Lots of information there about that, and lots of the Opta stats, comparison tools, fixture ticker, all those types of things. Also, please like if you've enjoyed this episode, and remember to subscribe to keep up to date with all our latest videos and podcasts. Anyway, it's a goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
And a goodbye from me.
Goodbye all.